Hello everyone, my name is Adam Lambert and this is Behind the Life podcast, a show where I talk to people from all walks of life to go through their life experiences, journeys and paths they have taken. My first ever guest is Aaron Calder, a hugely successful vegan blogger with thousands of social media followers. However, before this success, Aaron went through a very dark period in his life. He was an alcoholic. So severe was his drinking, he was told by medical experts that his body was shutting down. Aaron knew he had to do something and slowly improved his health through what he called a bad vegetarian diet. Since 2016, and after watching a Netflix documentary, he became vegan, and since then he has not looked back. He lives his life with the following quote: "Life can be overwhelming. Don't worry about tomorrow or things that might not happen. Live your life each day at a time and focus on now." Ladies and gentlemen, this is Behind the Life of Aaron Calder. Hello Aaron, how are you?
Hi Adam, I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good, Aaron. You've had a pretty remarkable life so far. Just looking back on that quote that you've penned, what made you to pen that?
Well, after I couldn't drink anymore, so I didn't have that sort of crutch to fall back on. I realised that I had to rethink how I think about my life, and one thing was I'm quite optimistic and set myself quite a lot of goals, and I found that I'd get very anxious, and then if I didn't meet those goals I would sort of feel depressed, and I think that's one of the reasons that led me to become alcohol dependent. So I think I will learn that if I think about here and now and today, and that's the most important thing, get through today, to try and achieve as much as you can today, and don't worry about tomorrow, because it hasn't happened yet, and then when tomorrow comes it's a new day, and then you just worry one thing at a time.
That's great. So is that a quote that you've recently adopted for your life?
It's been 7 years since I've stopped drinking. Be 8 years in August this year. So that's sort of the first couple of years where I had to rebuild my life. That was one of the things that I thought about, that I'm going to have to start doing and living by that rule.
And have you ever had any times of potential relapse over that time?
Not in the last 7 years, but one thing, because my story is quite long, obviously there's more than what's actually sort of put out on my website, etc. But I did actually go to hospital that same year for a week because I had gout again. It wasn't so bad, but the doctors knew that I was drinking, so they kept me in. They said I had liver damage. And I came out and they said, you can never drink again. I came out of hospital, didn't touch a drop of alcohol, found it really, really difficult, really hard. Because everywhere you go, there's, a drink, or you see it on TV, go out with friends and there's drink there. And then after, I think it must have been about 2 months after I came out of hospital, I relapsed. I went to Portugal to see a friend, and they said, "Do you want a glass of wine?" And they said, "Can you have one?" Because they knew what had happened. And I said, "Yeah, I'm sure I can have one." And then it all went very badly wrong. And that was another point where I realised that I do have a problem, and it's not just one; it's a bottle, and then more on top of that.
So when were you sort of first introduced to drink, and then when did this sort of spiral out of control?
I think as a kid, no one in my family was ever a big drinker. It was just at sort of Christmas time and things like that when alcohol would come out, and my mum would never let me have a drink, like most parents. I remember, I think it must have been when I was about 15, having some of my mum's Pernod, a very small amount, and
Yeah.
I really enjoyed how it made me feel, because you sort of felt silly. And I remember I went to school afterwards, and me and my friend were just laughing, and it just made us really confident and sort of got rid of the inhibitions. And that was just a very small amount. That was probably the first time that I'd ever tried it.
And so during your, your worst period of drinking, how much were you drinking on a daily basis?
And my worst periods, it was literally whenever I was awake, I would be drinking. The only time I wouldn't drink would be when I was asleep or unconscious. It was about two bottles of vodka a day, the standard size. It was at least one a day, possibly 1.5 to 2.
And how did sort of that affect your mental health and your day-to-day life as well?
I thought it was helping, and because when I started drinking, I would have sort of small amounts, and it was just in the evenings. And then sort of when it comes to seeing friends and things socially at lunchtime, I could have like a glass of wine and it was acceptable. And then I would have more when I got home from the social event, and then that would lead into the evening. It started off mostly with drinking wine, and then I found that wine started to make me feel ill. I'm not sure why. I think my body had difficulties digesting it. But vodka seemed to be, maybe because it's purer, seemed to give me the fix that I needed.
And did you sort of have what some alcoholics put in place? Oh, well, if I don't drink before 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm not an alcoholic. Almost, kidding yourself.
Yeah, it was always 7 o'clock in the evening. I would think, oh, I'll have a glass of wine. I'd drink very slowly. I remember someone asking me, they was asking me about my drinking, and that I did drink very slowly. And it was almost like just having the bottle open and a glass of wine next to me was like a support. It was strange. But then as the evening went on, the bottle would get emptied and I would carry on drinking. Literally, when I drank, every time it would be until I passed out.
And did any of your, friends know about this, and your family, or, were you hiding it away?
Yeah, everyone. It went on for many years. Everyone knew that I liked to drink. I'd always drink when we go out for meals and things like that, or family functions. And then it would spiral where it would come to the bill in a restaurant coming, and I'd say, "Oh, can I have a shot of brandy in my coffee?" And then I would come home and try and get more drink. And so over time, yeah, there was concerns from family and friends, especially my partner, who'd quite often find me, would come down at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, where am I? Why am I not in bed? And I'll be passed out on the sofa, and he'd wake me up if he could. That was a very dark period of my life, because obviously it was upsetting him, and I was in complete denial that I had a problem.
At what point during your drinking did you go out and seek advice?
I remember when I was 18, I got a job working in Richmond as a personal assistant, and quite often I would stay. I worked for a guy who, a businessman and writer, and he had a large house. So quite often he would say, because I lived in Tunbridge in Kent, it was quite a long journey. So he would say if I wanted to stay in the spare room, it was fine. So some evenings I would stay, and then he would always have a glass of wine. So I would have a glass of wine as well. For the first probably year or so, it wasn't an issue at all. And then I did actually notice, and I actually remember I sat down with my boss in the garden, and I said, have you noticed that I'm drinking a lot? Because I have, and I'm quite concerned. He didn't think it was a problem at all. He thought that, most people have a glass of wine, or a bottle of wine, and it wasn't a problem. But I thought it was. And I went to an AA meeting in Richmond.
Okay.
I managed not to drink that night. I thought it would be an insult to go to something like that and be drunk. That was very interesting. And when I listened to everyone's stories, I had the opportunity to talk, but I didn't. I actually thought, God, these people really have got issues, and I'm fine. But that was the early days.
And you almost say now, it's just fascinating. You keep, touching on to spirits, and obviously that you were drinking wine. Were you almost thinking and believing, well, I'm okay, but if I start on spirits, that's when I'm going to become alcoholic?
Yeah, if I drank socially or on my own, I would always have wine. If I went clubbing, I'd always have spirits, and that was sort of where I really let my hair down. So I thought if I'm having a bottle of wine, it's not too bad. I thought I don't drink it all, really quickly. I will start drinking at 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'll probably like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd still be up drinking. So it was all excuses looking back, but I believe them. That was the frightening thing.
And was that 7 days a week?
It was eventually. It was, yeah.
And
Maybe there was break. I had breaks where I'd go to the gym and I'd get really into my fitness. I wouldn't drink at all. I think it all comes back down to an addictive personality, and then something would happen and I'd just completely relapse. And I'd got myself in really, really good shape. I had a 6-pack. I was eating healthily, and then I think I went out with some friends and got drunk. And then the next day, I thought, I'm going to have another drink in the evening, but I'll go back to the gym tomorrow. And then it just spiraled on from there.
And you've got an absolutely brilliant and honest blog on your website about how drinking affected your body. What and how severe were the medical conditions that you suffered?
When I was admitted to hospital, it was really bad. I still have nightmares,
Okay.
probably almost every night about it. But the vomiting blood, the strange thing is I knew something was coming because I had gout, my ankles were swollen. I had difficulty standing, and I would come home from work and sort of crawl up the stairs because my legs were so weak. And I'd have like a pain in my chest, a pain in my back. My stomach was painful. It was all just damage. And the worst thing was, because I just carried on drinking, I remember someone, a first aider at work, said, I think you've got gout. Do you drink a lot? And I said, oh no, not a huge amount. And they said, I think you should go to the hospital. And I just carried on. So it was a huge amount of pressure that alcohol put on my body, and it just built up into not just one thing but several things. I'm very, very lucky to be alive. I know that.
And how long were you in hospital for?
I was in for 2 weeks, about 14 days. The first sort of 2 or 3 days were really bad. I was in a daze. I think that was probably the drugs they'd put me on to detox, and also my body had gone through a lot. I'd had 2 blood transfusions, and they said that the reason I was vomiting blood was that my liver was so badly damaged that when my heart was pumping blood into my liver, for it to filter, that it was sort of backing up on itself, putting pressure on veins in my esophagus, and they said they just ruptured, literally burst open. So I was almost like drowning in my own blood. And it wasn't just one vein, it was 7 or 8, I think they said.
And how did you find it when the doctors told you that? Is this when you thought, hang on, this has gone out of control?
Yeah, that was when I thought this was it. I didn't actually think I was going to survive. I remember in the mornings, when they would come and sort of wake me up and do tests, and they'd say, this is bad. We need to, we're talking about liver failure, amongst other things. So yeah, it really hit home, and I didn't actually think. I thought I was probably going to die, but even in hospital, I would come up with excuses about why I was ill, and I would say, oh, it's my kidneys and things like that. But everyone knew at that point exactly what was wrong with me.
was that the point when you told your family for the first time?
I don't think I've really ever told them. I discuss it more recently, about, you know, since it was since I've opened up about it on my social media. They all knew that I had a drinking problem, but I always kept quiet about it. It's still sort of a sore subject because it's such a shameful. I know, I think to myself, how on earth have I got myself into such a mess? And when I go for checkups and they say, do you suffer from asthma? Do you have any allergies? Do you do this? Do you do that? And I will say, no, no, no. And they say, oh, you're in top health. And I think, well, I am, apart from the damage that I did to myself. And if I hadn't have done that, I would have been, in such great health, and I've just completely wrecked it, or caused so much damage.
And I suppose, there's addictions like this which can really destroy families and friendships, and you have anger on their side because you've been hiding it from them. How did your family react, for the first time that you told them?
They when they knew I was about my drinking.
Yes.
Yeah, they knew about it, and they tried different approaches of, we love you, we'll support you. My mum offered to pay for me to get some help, and again I would just sort of go into denial and say, oh, I'm fine, I don't really need to get help, and things like that. This was before I went into hospital. It's a huge, I don't think people can know exactly what it's like until you're in that position where you are just completely in denial about everything. But yeah, my family have been really supportive. I wouldn't have got through it without my family, and especially my partner Tony, who really stood by me. I thought when I was in hospital, I thought, he's obviously not going to stay with me now, the mess that I'm in, and he did.
So you mentioned Tony. So, did your partner, did he know how bad this was? Someone as close as yourself. Did they understand what you were going through?
I don't think they understood why I was drinking, or the lies. It was I would like need to drink. I was so dependent on it that I would sometimes wait for him to go to bed, and I would go out with his bank card, sneak out and buy a bottle of vodka ready for the morning, or I'd have a little bit before bed. And then I'd have some in the morning. He would quite often find bottles hidden around, so I'd always have to hide bottles. But it makes you a really good liar. I was convinced myself that I didn't have an issue. So he would say, have you had a drink today? I'd say no, I haven't, and I'd hide it, and I'd find different ways of hiding. I'd have extra strong mints at different places where I'd hide the bottle. Sometimes I'd decanter it into a water bottle and sort of put that in the back of the fridge, and it literally overtook my life. It's a really frightening thing.
And regarding post hospital, after you're in there for a few weeks, what sort of rehab did you do?
When I came out of hospital, they insisted that I went to a group meeting every day for 2 weeks, which was sitting down and just talking with a counsellor. And there was probably about 14 people in the group. The sad thing was when the group started, there was probably 14 people in it, and at the end of the 2 weeks there was about 6 people left, where people had just relapsed or didn't think they had a problem and left. But that was really intense because you had to all the things that I'd blocked out with drinking, I had to sit there and then talk about and discuss with people. Things that I'd lied to myself about, thinking I would think, oh, I'm a strong person, and I had to say, oh, actually I'm weak because of this. So I did that for 2 weeks, and then I had counselling once a week for about 2 years, and then that eventually phased out. But I'm really lucky because I was told by many people that I'd have to go to meetings a couple of times a week for the rest of my life. But this time around, the second time after coming out of hospital. So for the last 7 years, I've not craved or been close to relapsing at all, not one bit.
And how did you find, going to counselling? It's a bit of a taboo subject to some people, not wanting to admit it, but it can be a really good thing, just being able to, let your feelings out, talk about how you're doing.
Yeah, it was good. It was nice just to chat with someone, and he would be very open with his replies, and honest. So sometimes I would talk about something and I would say, oh, it doesn't bother me. And then he would say, oh, I can tell it does bother you from the way that your body language and the way you're talking. So he helped me to address a lot of things that would build up my confidence. I mean, I was literally, when I first came out of hospital, I was still yellow. I had trouble walking. I couldn't really keep food down. So I had to get on the bus to go to these meetings once a week, and people would stare at me, and I was quite conscious of how I looked. I didn't know how long it would take before, if I would get better. Would my jaundice ever, disappear? Would I always have sort of a yellow a yellow colour to my skin?
Yeah.
But it was good. Counselling definitely helped, and I probably would have carried on. But he actually said, I think we're cut down to once a month, and then he said, do you actually really need to come anymore? I think you've sorted yourself out, which was an amazing thing. And he would praise me a lot as well, which really helped. So sometimes I would talk about a negative thing about myself, and he would say, well, why are you thinking like that? You should be thinking like this. And you haven't, you've survived, you've got yourself back on track, and that's the main thing.
And you also went through hypnotherapy, I believe. How did you find that?
Yeah, that was in the early days, when I knew I had a problem. The first time I tried it was really good, and I asked, when I discussed it with the guy, he said, I can get you to not want to drink at all, or after a couple of glasses you can that's enough, you won't want to drink anymore. So I said, yeah, that's what I want. I want to be able to drink, but not lots. And it worked for about a month. And then it sort of all relapsed and went back downhill, and I started drinking heavily again. So I went back, and then the second session didn't help at all. But there's definitely something in it. There was something in it that worked, but I think my addiction was, I think I needed something more than hypnotherapy.
And regarding, coming off alcohol, you've got on your website a quote that you described as you went on a bad vegetarian diet. What's one of them?
A bad vegetarian diet was, I think all my focus had gone on getting, that I was lucky to be alive and just getting any food into my body, because I hadn't eaten for so long. When I was drinking, I'd have one meal a day, and I'd probably end up throwing that up. So I just, a bad vegetarian diet would be cheese with everything, eggs, cakes. I used to work in a supermarket. We used to get cheap deals at the end of the day. So I'd literally bring home a whole chocolate cake, like a birthday cake, and I'd just eat all the icing off of it, because I'd pay like 10p for it, and throw the rest away that I didn't really want to eat. So I didn't even realize it, but gradually, after I was very thin when I came out of hospital. I gradually put on about 2 or 3 stone, and that was my health was really bad as well.
And would you say that was comfort eating as a diversion from drinking?
Yeah, it was, because I couldn't drink, I would focus on food, I guess, and just eat whatever I wanted. And I think I would think to myself, well, I deserve it, because I haven't had a drink today, so I'll have some chocolate cake or a big bag of crisps or something. Or everything was like potato gratin with cheese, or mozzarella, garlic bread, and things like that. And I'd eat the whole lot.
And if you could go back, all those years ago to when you were so dependent on alcohol, what would you tell a younger version of yourself?
I would say the biggest thing that you can do is to admit that you've got a problem and to speak to someone about it. Because I went beyond the point of um, being I couldn't actually stop. If I'd have stopped drinking, I don't know if you know that alcoholics can have fits and they can die from withdrawal. They have to you have to detox from it, or you have to sort of cut down really slowly if you're strong enough to do that. So I would have seen like to have known the signs and got more help when I could have. I mean, I did try different things, but I think when I was in denial, I should have actually said to someone that I really do need help. But sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can admit these things, which is where I ended up.
And are you doing anything at the moment, Aaron, regarding, your story and trying to help other people that have gone through similar?
I had quite a lot of people message me, and I've been helping people one-to-one. One thing I've thought about doing is I'd love to go into schools and do, when you get the people do talks and things like that, just about the dangers and what I've been through. Because I think if the warning signs are there, people recognise those signs. Because alcohol is such a big part of culture, and it's everywhere. It's on TV, and it's acceptable to go out and get drunk at the weekend and not remember it for a lot of people, and especially kids. So it'd be nice to sort of have a platform to help more people. I'd like to do if there's a groups that would like me to go along and talk to the group about how I've my story of success, because I didn't think before I went into hospital, I just thought, this is it, I'm going to die. I there's no helping me, it's going to all end really badly, I've caused too much damage, I'll never be able to live my life, and even if I do, I won't be happy if I can't drink. So if I can do it, then anyone can do it.
Well, I think it's fantastic, Aaron, that you've come onto the show, which I really appreciate, and being open and honest about it as well.
Thank you.
No, and I say being able to get your story out, and if other listeners know that they've got an issue, so we'll put your contact details up at the end as well for your Instagram, etc. So regarding now and veganism and becoming a vegan, when did you go down that route?
It was it's weird to think, actually, because it's 4 years ago on this Saturday coming, that I went vegan. And just 4 years ago, it was still, you'd hardly even really heard about vegans, or when you did, it was sort of that stereotypical stick thin person or a hippie that you would think of. And I remember I had some time off work, some holiday, and I thought, I'll just watch something on Netflix or Amazon Prime. And I watched this program called Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, where this Australian guy, did a juicing diet, and he had lots of health issues, and suddenly, like, his health was getting better. And I remember sitting there thinking that this can't be true. How can he be surviving? He's not getting his protein. He's not getting his, calcium from milk and this and that. So I was very, very skeptical. And then I watched another documentary, I think it was called Forks Over Knives, where it had people on there again, talking about their health, and that they'd gone plant-based and their health had improved. People's cholesterols had got better, people had lost weight, people have got more energy, and even there was people that had cancer, and they said they decided to change their diet, and the tumor disappeared. So I thought, this is sounds too good to be true. So I thought, I've got to try it. And I thought to myself, I'll try it for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then after that, I'll probably go back to being a vegetarian and eating whatever I want. So I tried it for 2 weeks, and at the sort of the 2 weeks passed, I did feel a lot better. I found it a lot easier than I thought I would. And so then I decided to stick to it.
And for, all those people out there who, do not know what a vegan is, would you like to just explain?
Yeah, so vegan is someone that tries to they're not perfect. A lot of people will say, oh, but vegans eat avocados and avocados need bees and bees die. So vegan is someone that tries to cause the least amount of damage to the planet and especially animals as they can. So they won't eat any animal products. They don't wear leather, don't have honey, buy cleaning products and things like shampoos and that aren't tested on animals. So that's someone that will never. That's quite a strict thing. So a lot of people don't like the word vegan,
Okay.
and I did think in the past, should I change my sort of platform to more plant-based, but I thought no, I am a vegan. I stand strongly, I'm very passionate about animal welfare, etc. And then you have a plant-based diet, which is someone that eats a vegan diet, but necessarily they might still wear leather, they might occasionally eat fish, and they might buy products that have been tested on animals, but the plant-based diet is predominantly plant-based. So there's sort of two different things.
And do you sort of get sick and tired of people going on and moaning about, vegans that are in your face, and really sort of flouting it?
Yeah, it's I know when I first went vegan, because it's like an awakening, because I was suddenly feeling better and my health was a lot better, as you know, and I was going to say I'm very lucky, but I suppose it's unlucky. But when I have to have blood tests and they say, this is improved, that's improved, you've lost weight, and they're monitoring my health, and it was massive improvements within about 6 months of me going vegan, and things are still getting better now. So at the start, I was very much, when people asked me about it, I would be very preachy and in their face and get very angry when they would try and justify things. Over time, I've realised that's not the best way to speak to people. The best way for me is just to let them have their views and approach you to talk about it. Also, one of the best things I've found is whenever I've had people round, or if I've been at work with food, letting people try it, and they quite often can't believe how nice it is, and especially the main reason I started my Instagram was so that I could show people, I don't just eat tofu and salad and chickpeas. I eat but normal food. There's literally almost anything you can eat, but you have a plant-based version. I know someone messaged me today on Twitter saying that they'd been vegan for years and they hadn't even thought about having French toast, but I made some French toast. I've got a recipe for it where you use chickpea flour, and amongst other things, but it goes like an eggy batter. Okay. So you can sort of coat the bread in it and fry it, and it does almost taste exactly the same as egg.
So is there a lot of experimentation to see, what type of recipes you can knock up?
Yeah, I know at the start I did eat a very bland, basic diet. I wasn't sure of things that I could, all the options out there, and then slowly there's more options become available. I mean, now you can get, it's gone mad. You can go to any supermarket or restaurant and you're spoilt for choice. 4 years ago, it wasn't the same. But I remember things like my first cheesecake that I made. It was made with blended cashews, and I hadn't blended them properly, so it was quite lumpy. Didn't set properly, and I thought, well, this is disgusting. This is not a good advert for veganism. And then next time I thought I'll give it another go, and I blended it for longer, and I had changed the ingredients slightly, and it came out amazingly. So quite often when I have people around for dinner, I'll do a cheesecake because I find it really easy, and everyone will say, oh, this is one of the best desserts I've ever had, and people can't believe there's no dairy in it. And another one was baking cakes. That took me a while to get right because the egg normally binds the flour. There's loads of different things you can try, but there's a recipe. Well, I tried lots of different things, but there's a recipe now where it comes out perfectly. And again, like I had some friends come round and I made a chocolate birthday cake, and they said, "Oh, did you buy it?" And I said, "No, I made it." And they were like, "Oh, is it vegan?" And I said, "Yeah." And I was like, "It just tastes like a normal chocolate cake." And I was like, "I know exactly."
So is that what you're doing at the moment then, Erin? Are you a chef?
I'm not a chef. I'm just a cook. I would sometimes I would call myself a chef, but apparently you have to be trained to
Okay.
be call yourself a chef. So I'd say I'm a self-taught cook. But mainly, yeah, what I do is develop recipes, and I've started branching out. So doing supper clubs where I'll go to people's houses and cook for them, or they can come to my house and I'll throw like a dinner party for them and their guests. Putting recipes out there for my YouTube, and been in a couple of magazines as well. But ultimately, I'd love to do a cookbook. That's my sort of dream.
And what would you say the hardest thing about being a vegan is?
The hardest thing is when you learn about what goes on, and what animals go through, and it's not just animals; it's the resources that it takes to, like to have it. When someone sits down and has a burger, they don't realize everything that goes into it. Not just that it came from a cow, but the resources and the grain and the water and the land and the emissions, etc. And then it goes. There's so many things that you learn that you just didn't even think of before. So it makes you very conscious of the food that you eat. I mean, even some of the vegan food, like almond milk's not great for the planet, so I don't drink almond milk anymore. But that's the hardest part, and the hardest part as well is when you see people like will eat a bacon sandwich and they sort of throw the other half in the bin and say, "Oh, I didn't really enjoy that. It was a bit tough." And it's not the food. It's not a lot of people think it was the lack of food, or I don't enjoy what I eat. It's the conscious side of what goes on behind the scenes.
And we talked about, trolls out there against vegans. I was reading the weekend about top 20 questions and comments that people make about veganism, such as, you vegans just live off tofu, or if we all went vegan, then all animals would die out, or plants suffer pain, etc. Have you ever, been the victim of trolls yourself?
Yeah, I've been really lucky actually. I've had a few, but not many. Some people have told me they get it all the time. Maybe it's my approach of not sort of being too pushy that doesn't cause. I think when you're too preachy, that causes a reaction.
Yeah.
But I have had people message me ridiculous things like, how do you get vitamins from plants, because humans aren't designed to digest plants? And I think, well, that's like one of the most stupidest things ever.
So what's your response to them?
Oh, actually, they said, I can't remember the exact term. They used like a chemical compound that's found in plants. I can't remember what it was. They said that animals digest it like herbivores, like cows and like guinea pigs and things like that, but humans can't. And I actually Googled it, and apparently humans can't digest it. But when we chew food and break it down, then it breaks down in our stomachs. We then absorb all the vitamins and the nutrients from it. And the bit we don't absorb is fiber. That's the bit the body can't break down, which is obviously fiber is really important for a healthy gut and digestion. So that was my response, was to say, we have different bodies to animals, but our bodies can, you never hear, if someone says you need to get more vitamins in your diet, you never hear someone say, oh, you need to eat more meat and things like that. It's always like, eat your fruit and veg.
And how is that improved your health? So how are you today?
I'd say I'm very, very good. I live a full life. I'm quite active. Not. I'd love to go to the gym, but I can't because of my body still sort of coping. Well, they call it compensating. So basically, even though my health has majorly improved, my liver is still damaged with cirrhosis, and they call it compensating, where that even though there's damage, that it's compensating for the damage that's being caused. So actually, if I went to a doctor and they didn't know anything about me and they took a blood test and checked my liver, they would say you've got a very healthy liver, and we can't
Okay.
see any issues at all. When you look deeper and you do scans and things like that, or I had a biopsy, that you can see that there is damage there. But my diet absolutely has definitely improved things, especially with one of the amazing things was the FibroScan that I talked about in my when I was in the Metro newspaper, where they do a scan of your liver and it measures the denseness of, you know, how badly damaged it is. Originally mine was 75, which is the worst possible score.
Oh, okay.
So that was really frightening when they told me that. And then when I went back a year or two later and it was 75 again, I was really worried. So was the specialist. You could tell by the look on their face. And then when I went vegan and I had my first one as a vegan and they said it had gone down to 39, I was shocked, and I think they were pretty impressed as well. But that's still a really bad score. They said they need to get it down to about 20 for it to be, you know, to show really good signs for my future health, and, you know, my length of how, you know, my overall health and how long I'm going to live for. And the last one I had was, it had gone down even further to 30. So it had gone from a 75 down to a 30 in over 4 years, which I thought was incredible.
That's really good. And, you know, I really admire how you're, you know, promoting what you're eating, you know, on your social medias, etc., you know, and how it's been linked to your improvements in health. What made you get into the blogging business, Aaron?
Originally, it was when I first went vegan, and I'd go into work and people go, "Oh, vegan, what did you have for dinner?" And I'd say I had a cheeseburger last night, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're not vegan anymore?" And I'd be like, "No, a vegan cheeseburger." And they're like, "What, does that exist?" And I got so sick of people asking me, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go on Instagram, set up an account and put pictures of my food on there, so that when people ask me, I can just say, well, go on, you know, and have a look, and you can see all the food that I'm eating. So if you look at the start of my Instagram, it was terrible, like really basic pictures and rice and salad and things like that. Probably a lot more healthier back then. And then over time, it sort of, people were messaging me, and then I noticed I was getting people following me that weren't friends or family.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, I'm quite enjoying the interaction from people and hearing, you know, people saying, "Oh, your food looks great, you should do more." And that's when I just thought, you know, I'm going to start doing some recipes, which then went on to me making videos. And then I set up my Twitter account, have my YouTube account, then I post occasional things on Facebook. So actually originally it's my whole blogging thing started just by accident. I never actually set out to become a blogger, but I really enjoy it. It's you know, I do my posts and things every day, and I think that's I think that's another thing that's got something that, if anyone does have drink problems, I think if you have an addictive personality, if you stop drinking, it's probably going to go on to something else. So you need to find something that you really enjoy, that's positive. So for me, it would be focusing on cooking. I do a lot of thinking about my food, because it's healthy. I then don't want to damage my, you know, my body or cause any harm to it. So I'm very conscious of keeping myself in good shape, and drinking lots of water, and you know, supplements and things like that are going to keep me healthy.
And how many hours a day would you say you spend in the kitchen?
Not a huge amount. People always think it's more than it actually is. The time that the thing that's most time consuming is actually photographing it and putting it on Instagram.
Okay.
Most of my food I will knock up in about 20 minutes to half an hour. I mean, that's basic food. I mean, things like cakes and cheesecakes can take a lot longer. But I'd say probably cooking probably about 2 hours a day. I suppose that's probably a lot for some people, but not a huge amount for me.
Your partner must be a very happy man. I bet you don't let him into the kitchen.
Yeah, he's not actually 100% vegan, but
okay.
he will eat all the foods I eat. It's just occasionally if we go out to a restaurant and it's not got a vegan option that he likes, he will have a vegetarian option. Occasionally he'll have chicken. He has done veganuary this year and last year, but he doesn't seem to sort of want to make that complete switch like I have.
So what would you say you're most excited about in the future?
I'm really excited. One thing I'm really excited about is my Instagram looks like it's going to hit 10,000 followers soon. Fantastic. Which that's sort of like a milestone apparently. So when you hit 10,000, you can do different things with your account.
Is that when you get the blue tick?
No. That's when you're verified. That you have to be famous to get that. But you can post internet links on your story and things like that. So it means that I can write something and swipe up, and it will take them to my website. You can't do that unless you've got 10,000 followers. And it's sort of like I read online that it's sort of you're sort of a micro influencer when you get to that amount. And it's taken a hell of a lot of hard work and dedication to do it. So I'm really excited about that. And I think once you hit 10,000, you're taken a bit more seriously. So I think it will open up some doors for me. As I say, I'd really like to do a cookbook, like a healthy cookbook, with meals that I feel have benefits to my health. I could have like a chocolate cake recipe, but put reasons to why I'm using certain ingredients and the benefits that you get from them. And reasons why I'm not using white flour and using wholemeal flour and things like that.
And it's certainly the demand out there. You know, I was doing some reading at the weekend, and the orders of vegan takeaways have grown by almost 400% since 2014. So, you know, there must be, you know, the demand out there for people learning and knowing more recipes.
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, it's massive now. I was speaking to a food journalist, and she was saying that something like she would seen a publisher brought out 9 vegan books that year, and in WH Smith's top 10, about 4 of the books were all vegan cookbooks. So I mean, a few years ago you wouldn't even have heard of that. I mean, it's gone like major mainstream, which is great. I remember when I first went vegan, I joined a group on Facebook where people would put a picture of new foods that would come out. And sort of once a month, there'd be like a new corn product or a new vegan cheese. And I'd be like, oh, wow, this is so exciting. Whereas now I could find it hard to keep up. But I sort of go on Facebook and I think, oh, my God, I can't afford to buy all this stuff.
So looking back through your life, you know, this has been a fascinating story that you've told today, Aaron. You know,
thank you.
What would you say has been your highest point, your main highlight?
My biggest achievement, or
your biggest achievement.
I think there are a few, but I think it would have to have been sort of sorting my life out and stopping drinking. As I say, I've been very lucky with the cravings and things like that, but I think I've done something mentally sort of to block those cravings, because I did have them before I relapsed. And you know, a lot of people have said to me, one of my followers, she said she was a nurse for 25 years in the digestive diseases department, and she said she'd seen so many people die from the bleeding that I had. So I know I'm very lucky, and it wasn't just that. When I went into hospital, there was problems with my kidneys and other things. So it's amazing how it's sort of given me a new life to think how amazing the body is at healing. How amazing food is at keeping us healthy and healing us, and also it's made me feel like I've been given a second chance, and that I should use that to help others in any way I can, whether it's through diet or recipes or helping animals, to advice about addiction. To a lot of people have asked me about my diet, and I did a thing on my website of the top 10 foods that I avoid and the top 10 foods that I think have made a difference to my health. And it gives me a sense of achievement, and sort of inner peace that I'm doing something, that I survived, and that I'm doing something to help people.
And you live down on the south coast in Brighton. Is it, you know, what's the vegan scene like down there now?
Yeah,
Is there plenty of restaurants to go to?
there's loads. Yeah, there's loads of vegan restaurants, and when you go to any normal restaurant like Pizza Express or Frankie and Benny's, you're spoiled for choice. As I say, I remember when I first went vegan, you'd have to ask what they could do for you. Now they have a lot of places actually have a vegan menu, so it's crazy. There's just so much choice now.
What about opening your own little restaurant up one day?
I don't think that's not one of my. A lot of people with art said it'd be great if I did that, but I think I'd like to be more behind the scenes with the food and everything like that. I don't think that's one thing that I'd really want to do. Although, as I say, I'm doing this supper club where I can go to people's houses and cook for them.
Okay.
I think the whole thing of if I had my own restaurant would be the stress and the pressure, and that's something that I don't want in my life. I'd rather sort of have it more, do it a different way where it's less stressful.
It seems like you've come out the other side, really well, really positive. You've almost, reinvigorated your career as well, which is going from strength to strength. Looking back, or actually for all those people out there who are listening, who've gone through similar or are currently alcoholics, what, if any, message would you have for them?
The message I would have for them was I had hit rock bottom. I was absolutely dependent on alcohol. I was pretty almost certain that I was going to die, and I didn't think there was any way back. I thought I'd lose my partner. I thought I'd lose my job at the time. You think the worst things, but actually once you get help, you'll be surprised at how many people do want to help you. And there's a lot of help out there, professionally and privately, and that if I can do it, then you can. A lot of people, I don't like when people say to me, "Oh, you're amazing, you've turned your life around," because I'm not anything special. I'm just a normal person like everyone else. So I always think if I can do it, anyone else can do it, because I literally, alcohol was my everything. Even before I was drinking every day, I would long for the weekends to go out and have a drink and relax, and or have a glass of wine in the evening and watch a film. So it was a major part of my life. I had to stop, but it's actually made my life better, removing that negative part of my life and replacing it with something positive, like cooking and things.
Yeah, but would you say that was, also due to all the therapy you went through, the cancer and etc., giving you that positive mental attitude?
Yeah, that's one the thing of the advice is that I couldn't have done it on my own. I did need. I mean, some people can. I know people that I've got a friend whose brother drinks a lot, and I was pretty sure he was going to end up like me, but he just suddenly stopped and now can drink occasionally, and doesn't have a problem with it, which I think is incredible, and that they're actually, I think, stronger than me because I had to seek help. But yeah, it's something that you have to admit. You have to admit you've got a problem before you can get help. And then, it's definitely things like books, looking on the internet, going on forums online, talking to people. At the start, I was talking to a lot of people in alcoholic forums and on liver disease websites about my experiences and hearing their experiences. So yeah, that has definitely helped me hugely.
That's great, Aaron. And regarding what you're doing now and your promotion of veganism, food, etc., how can people find out about the brilliant work you do? Where do they need to go?
Okay, so my main account is Instagram, which is Aaron Calder Vegan. My name probably doesn't sound very easy to spell, but if you go on Google and just put in Aaron Vegan, which is AARON,
okay,
it comes up with loads of different things. My website as well, everything's on there, so that's www.aaroncaldervegan. They're my sort of my two main things. and everything on my website. There's links to my YouTube and my Instagram, and then I do blog posts and things like that.
Everybody get out there and give it a follow. That's what I say.
Thank you.
Evan Calder, it's been an absolute pleasure to invite you on our show. You're the first ever guest on Behind the Life. It's been really an emotional and roller coaster story, and how you've come out with such strength and on a positive note. I wish you all the best. Now, I hope we speak again soon. I'll put the links to all of your work in the description section of my YouTube channel. Thank you, Evan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And that was another episode of Behind the Life podcast with myself, Adam Lambert. Please give me a follow on Instagram at Behind the Life Podcast, Facebook, Behind the Life Podcast, and if you listen to this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button below as well as the like button. I'll be back soon for another episode. For now, take care.